In this video, I'm going to show you how to take the Imperium's poster boys, the Ultramarines, and turn them grimdark, nice and grim and gritty and muddy. I'm not going to show you how to do the base coats. Here we've used Vallejo Game Air Magic Blue for all of the blue over a black base coat. If you want a different blue, like to stick with Games Workshop, I would suggest something really vibrant, maybe Temple Guard Blue or Teclis Blue. We've then used Retributor Armour from Games Workshop to paint the gold. We've used Lead Belcher to paint the silver metal parts. And the reason we want a really vibrant blue is because the next colour we use is going to tone that down, but we still want that strong blue colour to show through all that grime and muck and horrible gunge. So this colour, MIG Streaking Grime, is the main foundation of our grim gritty look. And what we're going to do is give the model a whole coat in it and then reduce it with enamel thinner. So this I call a streaking grime reduction. So what I'm going to do is use the streaking grime through an airbrush and give the model a whole solid coat of this. If you don't have an airbrush, you can apply it with a brush just as fine. Use a big brush, load it up, get it all over the model, a proper solid coating in it. You want to get the grime into all the nooks and crannies as well. Don't be scared, give it a good solid thick coat. Once we've done that, we're going to get some of our enamel thinner, and I use these little metal trays. We use some cotton buds, and we're just going to soak the cotton buds in the enamel thinner, and then we're going to roll that across the surface of the model. And you'll see what that does to the streaking grime. Now you don't want to leave the streaking grime too long, because if you do, it will start to set, and once it does, or cure rather, once it does, you can't get it off. So I've left this probably about 5 minutes between spraying it on and then trying to reduce it. So we're going to go over the whole model. As you can see, when we roll the cotton bud over it, it just reduces the streaking grime and leaves it in sort of nooks and crannies and recesses. And then what we're going to do is use a clean cotton bud and just go over and remove any excesses and still leave that grimy, horrible, grim, dark looking like residue left on the model. Okay, so once we've done that, we're going to take some Games Workshop Troll Slayer Orange, put that onto our wet palette and water it down until it's almost like a wash consistency. Not quite a wash, but getting there. And then we're going to use a brush, we're just going to dab that onto the silver metal parts whilst this thinner is still wet. And what that's going to do is it's going to sit on top of it and bead, and it's going to create this nice sort of like bright rusty effect. I'm going to go around all the metal parts and give it a dab with this. Next we're going to use AK Dark Rust Deposits, and I don't really like this brand, but once this pot's gone I'll be converting back over to MIG, but I've got it for now. You can get the same product in MIG and I'd recommend it. Next we're using Dark Streaking Grime from MIG, and we're just going to use this on all the gold areas, and we're going to create like streaks down the blue in this. Almost to create like a runny, horrible, grimy effect that's running across the armour. We can use it from the lid, where it's a bit thicker, or you can use it directly out of the pot where it's a bit thinner to create almost like a wash. And we can come in with a cotton bud again and just give it a bit of a rub to remove any excesses, or to sort of tone back where we might have gone a little bit hard, and also just to create little streaking effects too. Giving the whole model a bit of a dry off with a hairdryer. This will just evaporate most of the thinner and leave the enamel washes in their place. And then we're going to give the base a coat of Vallejo thick mud. This is European mud, and it's just this nice paste. When you're applying it, try not to get it onto the edges of the base, and if you do, clean it off whilst it's still wet, because once it sets, it does set really, really hard. And now we're going to add some little bricks to the base, and these are scale model bricks. You can buy them online, and they're made out of this really good material where you can like break them, and they do look like realistic little bricks. So we're just going to chuck a few of those straight into the mud, and we're going to tap those in with a little pair of tweezers. As I said, once the mud dries, it does dry really, really hard, so that'll hold those bricks in there really easily. And then last thing, we've got some scale model barbed wire. Just going to twist that into a nice little interesting shape, and then stick that into the mud as well. Then we're going to take our dark streaking grime again, and using a brush, use a synthetic brush here because you don't want to ruin your good brushes. Just wash that across the barbed wire and the bricks. Now for a really, really fun part, we're going to take our airbrush, and we're going to take our synthetic brush, dip the brush into the streaking grime. This is the dark streaking grime, and then use the airbrush to spray the bristles of the brush and create spatter up the base of the model. We're going to do this the whole way around the base with dark streaking grime, and then we're going to use MIG Kursk soil. I think that's how you pronounce it. And again, just dip the brush in, spray the bristles with the airbrush, and that'll create a spatter up the legs and the base of the model. So once that's done, I've just cleaned up the base again, the rim of the base, and we're going to move on to the eyes. First up, we're going to use corn red, and we're going to put that onto our wet palette and water it down, and we're going to paint the whole of the eye lenses with this. This is where we have to be pretty careful because we don't want to ruin everything that we've already done. This part is probably the only place where you have to be really, really careful, because you don't want any of the red getting onto the blue armour. It's right pain to get off. You can do that for both sides. And then we're going to use Evil Sun Scarlet. Again, water it down. This time we're just going to paint the not to the quite to the edges of the lenses, but most of the lens still. So just leave a little gap on either side of the lens, and we're going to do that on both sides. Next, we're going to add some Irial Yellow into our Evil Sun Scarlet. Just create like a nice orange. If you've got Wild Rider Red, you could use that instead, but my pot dried up, so I haven't got it anymore. And now we're going to paint that over where we've painted the Evil Sun Scarlet, but again, just leaving some of it around the outside, so now we're just on the very middle of the eye lens. Again, both sides. And finally, we're going to go in with our pure Irial Yellow, and we're just going to paint the very centre of both eye lenses. And that's it for all the complicated parts. Last thing to do, paint the base black, and we're good to go. I hope you enjoyed the video. I really enjoyed making these models. They're really fun to paint. It's quite fun being a bit more sort of just haphazard with the models. Other than the eyes, these you can kind of just go wild with these models, and you know, this style, I think you can use this for anything really, as long as you use a quite vibrant colour so that it shows through under all the grime. You could use like a bright green for Dark Angels, for example, or quite a nice bright red like Evil Sun Scarlet for Blood Angels, and I think it'd all come out pretty nicely. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. See you next time.